It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Decisions made in the White House have an impact on the entire country and the entire world, making it the center of power. But today we're going to talk about those decisions that are more than just controversial. They spark indignation, lead to large-scale demonstrations, and spark conspiracy theories that last for centuries. The White House has been at the epicenter of innumerable disputes throughout history. Its choices have influenced history, sometimes positively and sometimes in unexpected ways, from domestic upheavals to foreign policy errors. For better or worse, the decisions made by the leaders who have occupied this famous home have defined their legacies. Today, we focus on the White House's most recent decision, which has generated intense discussions and public attention. With social media exploding and headlines burning, the country is once again split on a decision that will probably have long-term effects. This choice will be examined, critiqued, and remembered, regardless of whether it is viewed as essential leadership or a serious error. Let's examine what causes the controversy. The nation is being rocked by the detonation of a political grenade that Washington just dropped. Following his re-election in early 2025, President Donald Trump implemented one of his most divisive policies: a comprehensive repeal of federal protections for gender identity in public places, athletics, and schools. This new requirement essentially repeals earlier laws that recognize gender identity by requiring federally financed institutions to recognize gender exclusively based on biological sex at birth. The answer? Complete chaos. Conservatives are applauding, claiming it is a triumph for women's rights and parental authority and a long overdue return to common sense. One Republican senator proclaimed, "We are restoring truth in law and fairness in sports." However, this is viewed by progressives and LGBTQ+ campaigners as a civil rights battle. They contend that the policy erodes rights, makes transgender people vulnerable to prejudice, and strengthens anti-LGBTQ+ attitude. During a heated demonstration in front of the White House, one protester declared, "This is an attack on our existence." In addition, there are protests everywhere. Intense altercations have broken out between crowds in the streets. While blue state leaders are promising open opposition, red state governors are hurrying to implement the strategy. This fight will continue to be fought in the courts for years to come, since lawsuits are already piling up. The media, meanwhile, is having a great time. Politicians on both sides are utilizing the dispute to energize their constituencies. Social media is a full-fledged battlefield, and cable television is in full-blown panic. This isn't just another change in policy, that much is certain. It is a cultural hotspot that has the potential to change the country's position on rights, gender, and the role of the state. One question still stands when the dust settles: who will prevail in this conflict over American identity? The White House launched a flurry of broad prohibitions on tech companies based in China in 2025 as part of its economic assault against the country. Promoted as a daring step to preserve American data and national security, the decision rocked international markets and sparked a new era of trade conflicts. Proponents praised it as a long overdue crackdown on commercial espionage and cyber threats from China. A top White House official warned, "We are done allowing China to steal American innovation and infiltrate our technology." By framing it as a critical stand against foreign influence, the administration compelled American companies to sever their connections with Chinese internet titans, who were allegedly involved in government links and dubious data practices. However, the reaction was swift and severe. The decision was criticized for being rash, threatening to destroy supply chains, drive up tech prices, and incite Beijing to strike back. China responded by imposing taxes on American imports, limiting the shipment of rare earth minerals, and threatening economic consequences that might rock Wall Street to its foundation. CEOs of tech companies raised the alarm, threatening to disrupt everything from semiconductors to smartphones. Global allies were left fumbling in the interim, torn between pressure from Washington and their economic links to China. Never one to overlook a crisis, the media conjured up dire predictions of an impending cyber Cold War. The world is now preparing for what will happen next because tensions are at an all-time high and neither superpower is willing to give up. Is this the start of a disastrous trade war or a brilliant strategic move to safeguard American interests? This battle is far from done, that much is certain. President Trump declared war on the streets of America in 2025 when he ordered the National Guard to be stationed in many states. Proponents said that law and order must be restored, hailing it as a resolute stand against chaos. Critics, however, saw it as an authoritarian tactic, a chilling onslaught on civil rights. Nationwide shockwaves were caused by the image of armed military policing cities, using tear gas on demonstrators and imposing stringent curfews. Civil rights organizations forewarned that democracy will collapse in front of America. Lawmakers argued, with some claiming it was despotism and others that it was necessary. Was the federal government suppressing dissent, or was Trump assuming power? There was no doubt that the fight for America's soul had only just begun. One of the most contentious conflicts in contemporary American history has been rekindled by President Trump's 2025 immigration crackdown. The government says it is taking a strong stance to defend national sovereignty and stop illegal immigration, with huge deportations and family separations already commonplace. Critics, however, contend that this is state-sanctioned cruelty rather than law enforcement. Children separated from their parents, families gathered in overcrowded detention facilities, and buses full of undocumented immigrants being sent out of the country in large numbers are all heartbreaking pictures. Human rights groups are raising the alarm, claiming that the policy is a flagrant infringement on fundamental right. There has been a tremendous pushback. Major cities have seen protests break out, with protesters and police fighting. International leaders are denouncing the United States and cautioning that these actions are similar to those of authoritarian governments. Some members of Trump's own party are also uncomfortable because they worry about the political repercussions. However, the government is not giving up. It will always be remembered that the United States was plunged into a full-scale conflict over reproductive rights in June 2022. In addition to ending government safeguards for abortion, the Supreme Court's historic ruling to overturn Roe v. Wade split the nation in two. With one side celebrating a long-awaited pro-life victory and the other lamenting what they perceived as a disastrous reversal in women's rights, the decision sent shockwaves across the country. What about the White House? Depending on who you ask, its response, or lack thereof, only made matters worse. The Biden administration was criticized by pro-choice advocates for being incompetent, unprepared, and unable to take decisive action to safeguard access to abortion. At the Capitol, a furious demonstrator yelled, "They saw this coming for months and still did nothing." Pro-life organizations, meanwhile, hailed the ruling as a win, claiming it was a significant step in redressing what they see to be a decades-old injustice. The retaliation was swift and fierce. Protests sprang out in cities. Some were peaceful, while others descended into anarchy. Threats were made against clinics nationwide, and several were forced to close overnight. While blue states rushed to position themselves as havens for reproductive care, red states quickly passed nearly complete abortion prohibitions. Then the political conflagration broke out. Democrats promised to fight back, but Congress was stuck. Republicans stepped up their efforts to impose even more stringent prohibitions. The media made it a show, with one network portraying it as a triumph. Then the political conflagration broke out. The media framed it as a dystopian nightmare on one network and a victory for life on another, turning it into a spectacle. This change was more than just a legal one. It was a seismic shift in American culture that upended decades of tradition and pushed the country into a more polarized and unstable state. And as the abortion debate continued, it became brutally obvious that the war was far from done. In August 2021, Kabul is in chaos. The world watched in horror as the United States executed one of the most disastrous military withdrawals in contemporary history. In addition to ending America's longest war, the Biden administration's decision to remove troops from Afghanistan after 20 years of fighting also sparked the conflict's eventual collapse. The Afghan government disintegrated in a couple of days, the Taliban took power with astonishing rapidity, and hundreds of terrified citizens rushed to the Kabul airport in the hopes of fleeing. What followed was an unvarnished display of disaster. The tragic images of Afghan people clinging to American military aircraft before they died served as a symbol of America's failure. The suicide bombing outside the airport, which killed 13 American service personnel and more than 170 Afghans, added to the devastation. Then there was the abandoned US military cache, which is currently in Taliban hands. Its equipment was worth billions of dollars. It was denounced as a betrayal of the Allies, soldiers, and Afghan people. Military leaders criticized the withdrawal's execution as haphazard and poorly planned. Even fierce supporters of stopping the war admitted that it had failed. Meanwhile, the White House defended the move by claiming that it was time to leave an unwinnable war. But was the price worth it? 2003, the Bush administration made a claim that would change the course of history. Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. This led to the Iraq War, a conflict that cost over $1 trillion, thousands of American lives, and countless Iraqi civilian casualties. But here's the kicker. Those weapons, they were never found. The White House's credibility took a massive hit, with many seeing the war as an unjustified invasion based on false intelligence. 9/11 shook America to its core. In response, the White House passed the Patriot Act, granting the government unprecedented surveillance powers. The justification? National security. The concern? Mass surveillance of American citizens. Was it a necessary tool to combat terrorism, or did it open the door to an Orwellian nightmare? Edward Snowden's later revelations about mass spying only reignited the debate. From gender policies to war decisions, from scandals to surveillance, controversial White House decisions have shaped America's history and will continue to do so. The question is, what's next? And when the next big decision drops, will it unite the country or push it further apart? And what do you think is the most controversial decision ever made? And do you think the latest one will stand the test of time or be overturned in the future? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you liked this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks for watching.